As the grim tide of the Ukrainian conflict rolls on, something alarming is happening among Russian troops. Desertions have surged explosively, revealing a disturbing truth about the state of morale within the ranks. By early 2025, Russia was grappling with over 500 soldiers abandoning their posts each month, an astonishing five-fold increase since the previous year. The brutal reality of warfare is proving too much for many who are sent to the front lines. New insights from the Irgunstvo Novosti Telegram channel reveal a detailed look at the dramatic surge in desertions, shedding light on how this data was meticulously gathered. Analysts from Front Intelligence Insight scoured tens of thousands of personal records from the Russian military, alongside sensitive internal documents. This thorough investigation encompassed various units, including notable divisions like the 30th Motorized Rifle Brigade and the famed 1st Tank Army. Perhaps most poignantly, the I Want to Live initiative, launched in September 2022, has emerged as a beacon for troops seeking to abandon their posts. It offers critical support to those contemplating surrender, allowing them to connect with handlers through various communication methods. By January 2023, multiple reports indicated that several thousand soldiers sought to take advantage of this program. While many never make it to safety, tragically cut down before they can escape, these early figures signify a growing trend among Russian soldiers towards self-preservation rather than loyalty to an ever more perilous mission. As 2025 approached its halfway mark, the rate of desertion had escalated to almost 6 times the number recorded just a year prior. Documents indicated a staggering list of 13,800 cases of unauthorized absence, which underscores the alarming trend. Specific statistics from the 30th Motorized Rifle Brigade reveal that between April 2023 and March 2025, over 2,000 soldiers fled their posts, an indicator that desperation is taking hold among the ranks. The numbers tell a harrowing story of fear and disillusionment, each statistic reflecting real lives caught in the chaos of war. What compels these soldiers to turn their backs on the fight? Can anything save them from a fate that seems inescapable? The ever-growing tide of desertions points to a collective awakening. As the horrors of combat seep deeper into the psyche of these men, the reality is stark: many are willing to risk everything for a chance at freedom, rather than continue to be sent as fodder into the relentless machinery of war. Each case of abandonment is not just a number, it's an echo of the collective trauma that marks this conflict. The question persists: who will be the next to raise the white flag, and what does that say about the state of warfare in Russia today? In a startling turn of events, the Russian military is facing an alarming surge in desertions among its ranks. Recent analysis reveals a dramatic 6-fold increase in the number of soldiers going AWOL between early 2024 and 2025. Documents uncovered depict a staggering 756 soldiers from the 30th Motorized Rifle Brigade abandoning their posts in just the first quarter of 2025. This early figure suggests that if this trend continues, Russia could see a total of around 3,000 desertions by the end of the year. What's driving these soldiers away? Initially, troops would desert primarily from bases, but by 2025, many began fleeing directly from the battle lines or simply not returning from medical facilities. This shift indicates a boldness among Russian soldiers. Possibly, they are seizing the chance to surrender to Ukrainian forces. In the chaos of war, some may simply disappear without a trace. The report also highlights that the majority of those abandoning their units are contract soldiers, making up 73.6% of deserters. In contrast, about 22.1% of those deserting are prisoners who have chosen to fight instead of facing imprisonment. This trend could imply that those forced into service may actually display more loyalty compared to contract soldiers. Notably, analysis from September 2024 revealed that the number of casualties among volunteer soldiers was surpassing that of prisoners, who accounted for 19% of total military deaths. But why are these soldiers choosing to abandon their posts? Is it fear, desperation, or perhaps a dawning realization that their lives could be sacrificed for a cause they no longer support? As the war escalates, the brutal conditions and high casualty rates may be driving them to take desperate measures. The situation paints a grim picture of the Russian military's internal struggles, one where the tragedy of war isn't just found on the battlefield, but also within the hearts and minds of those sent to fight. The question remains: how long can a military built on coerced loyalty sustain itself amidst growing discontent? As startling developments emerge, what future awaits a force on the brink of collapse? In a staggering twist of fate, Russia faces a crisis within its ranks as nearly 70,000 soldiers are poised to abandon their posts. This alarming statistic reflects a potent discontent brewing in the hearts of those fighting for Vladimir Putin. The Washington Post revealed this upheaval, noting that Russia's army has seen a remarkable surge in desertions, all while desperately trying to maintain its superiority on the battlefield. But are sheer numbers enough when morale is crumbling? The plight of the troops sheds light on their harrowing reality. Many of these soldiers, hastily trained for mere days, struggle to adapt to the brutal conditions of war. Unlike contract soldiers, these individuals, often former convicts, might find themselves better equipped for survival amid the chaos. Their past experiences could shape a hardened resilience, even as the alternative remains bleak. The prospect of returning to prison looms large for those considering desertion. As reports trickle in, the hard truth becomes evident: there exists a systematic problem. Quantity is prioritized over quality within Russia's military, as a reliance on convicts merely bolsters numbers in a battle that requires strategic depth and unity. This strategy masks a troubling contradiction. While it may seem that the convicts are more loyal than their volunteer counterparts, the harsh reality is that many are simply falling before they even get the chance to defect. The narrative intensifies as experts estimate that 70,000 AWOL soldiers constitute around 10% of Russia's forces in Ukraine. This shocking development translates to a staggering loss, particularly as mid-December 2024 saw about 50,000 troops unaccounted for, in a military estimated to boast around 500,000 personnel in total. The grim reality of this mass desertion cries out for attention. It's not merely a statistic but an echo of despair among the ranks. As tensions mount, continuing revelations illustrate that these soldiers are not just rigorous casualties but also individuals driven by dire motivation to escape a fate they cannot bear. With enraged public sentiment and military discontent simmering, Russia's struggle becomes increasingly clear. What happens when the soldiers refuse to be mere pawns? The clock is ticking, and as we delve deeper into this crisis, what dark truths will emerge from the battleground? In a shocking twist of fate, Russian soldiers are abandoning their posts in staggering numbers, around 70,000 by the end of 2024. That's a staggering 10% of a military force estimated to be 500,000 strong. This brazen act of desertion raises serious questions about the morale within Russia's ranks. Why are these troops turning their backs on a cause that once commanded their loyalty? As we dive deeper into this crisis, we find that the dissatisfaction among soldiers reflects a chaotic military atmosphere. In April of 2025, the first traces of rebellion erupted at the Krasnodar garrison. 100 soldiers, previously detained for desertion, staged a riot, attempting to break free from their chains. The conditions of their confinement were nightmarish, beatings rampant, hopelessness pervasive. Detainees languished behind wire fences, sharing meager outdoor facilities, treated less like soldiers and more like prisoners. Imagine the sounds of distant cries echoing in the cold night air as desperation took hold. Human rights advocate Ivan Shevelev portrayed the detainment situation as one spiraling into chaos, a bloody grinder that crushed the will and spirit of its occupants. This cruel environment is not just an isolated incident, it's a breeding ground for despair. The very brutality faced here illuminates why so many soldiers see desertion as their only escape from the nightmare of this war. But the question remains, did these soldiers act out of sheer survival instinct, or is there a deeper undercurrent stirring discontent across the ranks? As we peel back the layers of this unfolding tragedy, each revelation raises new concerns and exposes the fragile threads holding the Russian military together. The steady surge of desertions reveals a vulnerability within, a warning signal that Putin cannot afford to ignore. What will these tumultuous events mean for the future of Russia's military ambitions? The answer remains shrouded in uncertainty, hinting at a dramatic shift on the battlefield. In the grip of harsh detention facilities, we glimpse a twisted mirror of the relentless cruelty endured by active Russian soldiers, brutality that bends wills, shatters loyalties, and drives men to flee or vanish into the unknown. Imagine the scene: soldiers, faces etched with exhaustion, hearts pounding like war drums. What happens when the oppressors turn against their own tools of war? Picture it, flames licking the sky as Russian troops ignite their armored vehicles in a reckless act of defiance. Is this the breaking point, where Putin's iron fist crushes its own flesh? The acrid stench of burning fuel fills the air, tires melting into goo that hisses and pops. Boots sink into slimy mud under the weight of desperate men. Why torch their own gear? Sheer terror of commands that demand lives as mere fodder, devastating casualties piling up like a bloody tide, choking the soul. Russia unleashes its infamous meat assaults, waves upon waves of troops hurled at Ukrainian lines, human waves where each man feels the icy grip of inevitability. Do they know their purpose? To serve as cannon fodder, expendable pawns in Putin's grand gamble? Their screams echo under relentless barrage, blood-soaking frozen earth that cleaves to skin like a shroud. Lives reduced to digits, tools to expose enemy nests through torn bodies strewn across the battlefield. This savage calculus birthed nearly 1,120,000 casualties since the invasion's cruel dawn, a staggering toll that stains history red. Systemic torment, fiery stings of command, the hollow echo of losses, fuels the urge to slip away. To vanish in chaos rather than face the grinder. More telltale signs erupt straight from the front scorched chaos. In April, partisans in the Kherson region witnessed the impossible, Russian forces arsoning their own military rigs to dodge the firing line. The smell of singed metal curls through the air, sparks flying like angry hornets as flames devour steel monsters. Why such sabotage? Crushing defeats and draconian orders from superiors clamp down, leaving no escape from the vice. Devastating losses scraped nerves raw, harsh decrees igniting rebellion where obedience once reigned. If Russia's command hunts answers for 70,000 troops poised to desert by 2025's end, this cycle of savagery is the festering root. And many foot soldiers harbor a bitter truth: does their nation even grasp the agony shed for a tyrant's whim? The crunch of bones underfoot, the wheeze of labored breaths in smoke-filled haze, it whispers betrayal. Medusa exposed this abyss in an October report, spotlighting jailed deserters who dared claim personal havens. Familial crises, dying relatives begging tender hands, yet no mercy granted, no leave allowed to soothe fading lives. Imagine the torment: a soldier, miles from home, wrestling guilt as family fades, authorities indifferent to tears or pleas. Is this the final straw, where human bonds shatter beneath war's indifferent boot? The rattle of prison chains, cold bars biting flesh, senses dulling in endless gray monotony. Yet, amid the despair, a glimmer of irony twists the knife. Some may cling to survival's bitter promise. Bartering wits against the abyss, knowing retreat means rot in cells. Russia's reliance on convict hires, bred for quantity, not finesse, hides darker undercurrents. Volunteer troopers, plucked from civilian quiet, trained mere days, how do they not crumble? Prisoners, hardened by past sins, gamble on cunning, fearing return to caged misery more than death's cold touch. Desertions soar, yet fatalities might swallow absentees whole, a grim meat grinder turning lives to dust. Could mercenaries, far from home's arms, flee first, while convicts, with nothing left to lose, stand defiant? The bitter musk of gunpowder hangs heavy, a reminder of choices clashing like thunder. And as chaos swirls, Putin's dreams fracture, will the 70,000 shadows tip a fragile scale, forcing eyes to reckon with a crumbling empire's hollow core? Or will fresh orders summon even darker veils? What secrets lurk in the next dawn's fog? In the grim landscape of modern warfare, one battle stands out for its sheer brutality and the profound desperation of those fighting. As the conflict unfolds between Russia and Ukraine, a startling reality reveals itself: thousands of Russian soldiers are abandoning their posts, risking everything to escape a fate they no longer wish to endure. But what drives men, once proud soldiers, to such drastic measures? Imagine standing in a frozen trench, surrounded by the sounds of distant explosions and the acrid smell of burning metal. Russian soldiers find themselves not just facing the enemy, but battling something far more insidious: the indifference of their own leaders. An alarming report suggests that in 2025 alone, about 70,000 troops could desert their posts, representing a staggering one-tenth of Russia's military presence in Ukraine. This figure highlights a growing crisis within the ranks. Soldiers feel like mere disposable assets in Vladimir Putin's relentless quest for dominance. The situation spirals further into chaos as reports emerge of increasing desertions. By early 2025, Russian troops, once seen as a powerful force, began leaving their posts at a rate of nearly 500 per month. As the war intensifies, many are choosing survival over loyalty, driven by harrowing experiences on the battlefield. Their lives are reduced to mere statistics, their sacrifices seemingly overlooked by those in power. One soldier's harrowing story illustrates the pain of this plight. Sergei Guskov, a convict given a second chance to fight for his country, realized too late that he was sent into battle with neither adequate training nor sufficient ammunition. By July, he made the heart-wrenching decision to desert, explaining in court that he chose life over a senseless death. His story sheds light on a darker reality for Russian soldiers, a feeling of being treated as worthless commodities by a military that sees them simply as meat for the grinder of war. Yet, the military's brutal practices do not end on the battlefield. Detention centers, where soldiers face severe mistreatment, add fuel to a growing fire of discontent. Recent riots, born out of frustration, speak volumes about the despair within the ranks. Soldiers languish in squalid conditions, leading to a breakdown of morale as they realize their leaders have abandoned them to their fate, leaving them no choice but to escape. Behind the statistical data lies a human tragedy, as familial bonds tug at the hearts of those caught in this conflict. Many soldiers report being unable to attend the funerals of loved ones, which only deepens their desperation. In stark contrast to Western militaries, which offer compassionate leave for bereavements, Russian soldiers often remain trapped in an unforgiving system. The question arises, what happens when the realization of mortality clashes with the expectation of loyalty? As soldiers like Guskov risk everything to flee, not out of cowardice, but out of the innate desire to live, the perspective of who is truly being brave shifts dramatically. Their stories remind us that amidst the chaos of war, the human spirit yearns for dignity, connection, and, above all, the right to choose life over death. The implications of this mindset may shift the tides of the ongoing conflict, offering a glimmer of hope even in the darkest of times. What if sheer manpower is Russia's trump card against Ukraine, with a 3-1 force advantage hammered home since September? Yet, Vladimir Putin's grinding strategy falters as 70,000 troops vanish into the shadows by the end of 2025. Is this the hidden fracture in an empire's armor, where soldiers flee not from Ukrainian bullets, but the terror within? Imagine not soldiers storming lines, but waves escaping the horror. Can you feel the chill of betrayal on your skin? Picking up where we left off, desertion boils down to a raw, primal fear. No one wants to kill or perish in a senseless grind. Consider Vladimir, the deserting soldier whose lawyer quipped he'd rather rot in prison than lie cold under a Ukrainian sky. You might even hug your loved ones again, alive, untouched by the battlefield's filth. Such logic sounds almost routine, almost fair, in a land where deserters face predictable pain. But not all runaways journey to a courtroom. Out there on those blood-soaked fields, fate unleashes wild, merciless inventions of cruelty, turning escape into a deadly gamble. Every facet of Russian military life, from the slapdash training recruits endure to the savage mistreatment on front lines, and even the nightmares of detention, fuels this exodus crisis. Why go AWOL? Because the system itself is a relentless tormentor, crushing spirits from enlistment to end. Picture the dank barracks reeking of sweat and neglect, recruits woken at dawn by barked threats, drilling with guns that feel alien in trembling hands. Soldiers desert because brutality defines their existence. A cycle of degradation that leaves no refuge. What scheme does Russia unveil to mend this rupture? Not reforms, oh no. No kinder regimes, no rescue from slaughter that could persuade its swelling horde of 70,000 fugitives to reclaim ranks. Instead, it dials up the ferocity on top of what's already driving them mad. Penalties grow fiercer, deadlier, a spiraling retribution as desertion swells. Grimmer jails stand as the frontline weapon against fleers. Russia juggles sentences to weigh fear, making imprisonment a calculated specter to shatter illusions of easy flight. In 2024, deserters risked up to 15 years behind bars, a daunting deterrent. But why stop there? September uncovered Kremlin's plot to amplify the agony, 5 extra grim years stacked onto that wretched 15, swelling potential confinement to 2 decades. Psychological warfare reigns here, whispering that fate's harsher shadows lurk beyond Ukraine's trenches. Prison isn't kinder than a UKR% Inean hedge, the decree intones. With 20 years severed from kin, decades of absence, broken greetings, versus perhaps just a year or two bleeding in the mud. Hear the phantom echoes of muffled voices on cold concrete, the metallic clang of cell doors slamming shut, urging soldiers, stay and slaughter, or flee into oblivion. Yet, terror doesn't always unfold in orderly halls. For those who never stand trial, the front lines birth inventive, savage reprisals. Remote posts echo with sudden ambushes, comrades turned enemies wielding clubs or worse in the hail of artillery. Feel the heart-pounding rush as boots crunch over frost-kissed earth. The acrid smoke clawing at your throat, one misstep sealing doom before justice even stirs. This isn't mercy, it's a meat grinder spinning faster, chewing through flesh and resolve alike. And here lies the cruel irony, the twist that mocks Putin's iron fist. These harsher chains might ignite rebellions, not stifle them. Imagine the spark igniting fellow troops, loyalty fracturing into open defiance, allies morphing into foes in a system rigged for ruin. What if this solution accelerates the very collapse it aims to avert, 70,000 ghosts multiplying into an unstoppable tide? Stay tuned, as the battlefield's dark secrets unfold. In a grim twist of fate, as the war in Ukraine escalates, many Russian soldiers face a harrowing choice: endure the chaos of battle or escape to uncertain punishment. The situation is dire. Kremlin officials preach that there are worse fates than those faced on the front lines. Imagine this: a prisoner could spend a decade away from loved ones, while perhaps only serving a year or two in Ukraine. The battlefield, oddly enough, appears less punishing. But for those contemplating desertion, the consequences can be nightmarish. In the chilling winter of recent months, a video surfaced depicting a soldier tied to a tree, left at the mercy of the elements for attempting to flee. This brutal fate is not uncommon, as many who desire to escape the relentless grind of war face even more creative and violent forms of punishment upon capture. The Russian military has long dealt with the issue of desertion through fear and coercion. Commanders are known to implement ruthless strategies, erecting human barriers, effectively trapping soldiers within combat zones. A soldier named Alexander Gorin described the harrowing aftermath of one failed assault. Barrier troops were placed behind us. They threatened to take us out one by one. We were being executed for simply being reluctant witnesses to negligence in leadership. Gorin's chilling recollection encapsulates a pervasive brutality that leaves soldiers trapped between duty and survival. Reports of such punitive measures date back to 2023, highlighting the lengths to which the military will go to stave off retreat, which is perceived as desertion. The philosophy is simple: a soldier who stays to fight, even at the cost of their life, is preferred over one who may question orders. It raises an unsettling question: when lives are merely numbers, how can a soldier possibly find the will to fight? As the war drags on and numbers grow, it becomes clear that this cycle of violence and despair is breeding a growing contempt toward the command. Soldiers are faced with unheard of choices, and the results are increasingly alarming. Is it any wonder that the call to abandon posts becomes more enticing against the backdrop of trauma, punishment, and betrayal? The front lines are a grim reality, but the path to freedom from them is fraught with danger and uncertainty. The mounting desertions and acts of resistance point toward a catastrophic rift in loyalty. Soldiers, once steadfast, are now driven by a primal urge for survival against the very system meant to protect them. With each passing month, the military's desperate measures signal a deeper issue, one that possibly foreshadows a reckoning for the leadership. How many more will choose to flee rather than face the brutalities of war, and what will those actions mean for the future of the soldiers still compelled to fight? The lines have been drawn, and the implications resonate far beyond the front lines. In a situation where survival hinges on the whims of commanders, many Russian soldiers find themselves in an unbearable plight. Reports have surfaced detailing the systemic brutality that plagues the Russian military, where disobedience may lead to dire consequences. How can anyone expect loyalty when those in power seem intent on sacrificing their own troops? In July, stark footage emerged of a soldier bound to a tree, left to succumb to the harsh winter elements as punishment for attempting to desert. Stripped of protection, he faced a cruel fate, fighting against nature itself to survive. It's a chilling reminder of the lengths some commanders will go to enforce compliance. As the icy winds howled, one could almost hear the desperation in the soldier's thoughts: is this truly what I signed up for? As chilling as that scene is, the reality escalates even further. In September, intercepted communications revealed a shocking new method of punishment. A soldier would soon arrive at a military facility with broken legs, implying he had been brutally beaten to deter any desertion attempts. The horrifying intent, to use a maimed soldier as bait to lure enemies into traps, transforming those already facing a battle for their lives into mere sacrificial pawns. What fear must loom over the hearts of those who truly wish to escape this madness? Adding another layer of torment, a disturbing October report surfaced. Commanders have begun confiscating soldiers' bank cards. Without money, escaping becomes an uphill battle, encasing them in a cage of economic dependency. Imagine the panic as a soldier realizes that freedom hinges not solely on physical barriers, but now on financial restraints. Isn't this a brutal attempt to manipulate their very ability to survive? Those enforcing these actions know they tread on thin ethical ground, yet continue undeterred, promising the return of cards only if silence is maintained. As the oppressive methods heighten, the soul-crushing reality unfolds. The Russian military is not just a battleground of external opposition, but also a breeding ground for internal discontent. The stench of fear, the chilling sounds of despair, and the tactile sensation of hopeless entrapment echo through the ranks. With such cruelty on display, how long can this broken system hold together? Are the soldiers finding a way out of this battlefield of horrors, or will they be sacrificed in vain? As we dive deeper into this harrowing saga, one thing becomes clear: the fog of war is thickening, and the soldiers in the trenches are caught in a deadly game. What should you do when sheer numbers begin to crumble under the weight of despair? The brutal reality of war puts Russia's strategic advantage at risk. In September, it was reported that Russia claimed an impressive threefold increase in military forces. Yet, behind this facade lies a grim truth: as many as 70,000 soldiers may soon abandon their posts in Ukraine. This shocking statistic emerges from a comprehensive analysis by a Russian media outlet, revealing a stark rise in desertion since the conflict began. Although initial reports showed little to no desertions in 2022, the trend has radically changed. By early 2024, the number of soldiers fleeing their units ballooned to roughly 100 per month, and by 2025, that figure is predicted to soar beyond 500. This astonishing five-fold increase highlights a disturbing reality: many Russian troops find the fight against Ukraine unbearable. The chaotic nature of the battlefield has begun to unravel the fabric of military cohesion. Frontline soldiers have increasingly chosen to flee rather than face the horrors they encounter daily. From military bases to the front lines themselves, awareness is growing among these soldiers. They are becoming bolder, seizing opportunities to surrender rather than wrestle with the chaos of combat. Amazing programs like I Want to Live provide avenues for those contemplating desertion, allowing soldiers to seek safe passage back from the brink. Moreover, as heroic stories of defection circulate, the motivations for these acts emerge. While a significant portion of deserters are contracted soldiers, an alarming number of fighter convicts also opt out of the fray. This raises an unsettling question: are those who battled the law better equipped for survival on the battlefield? By the summer of 2025, the desertion rate will be staggering. Reports show over 13,000 cases identified, indicating an urgent need for change within the ranks. Soldiers from various brigades, including the infamous 30th Motorized Rifle Brigade, have recorded significant AWOL rates. The reasons behind these choices reveal an underlying desire for freedom from Putin's grasp, raising the stakes for Russia's military strategy. As the discontent in the ranks becomes undeniable, the consequences for Russia loom larger. With soldiers clashing against the brutal conditions of military life, their reliance on sheer manpower begins to falter. Brutality prevails in camps, sparking riots as troops demand humane treatment, showcasing the depth of their disillusionment. Amidst the turmoil, one question lingers: in a war fought by numbers, will humanity prevail? In the shadow of conflict, Russia seems to wield one undeniable advantage: sheer manpower. Yet, lurking beneath this numerical strength is a troubling truth. New reports indicate that Vladimir Putin's forces might soon face a significant setback. Imagine this: what if 70,000 soldiers of the mightiest army began to vanish? This is not mere speculation but a chilling projection for 2025 based on critical analysis from United 24 Media and a Russian outlet named Against the News. As the fog of war thickens, it's evident that many of those numbers do not hold firm. An increasing tide of desertion is coursing through Russia's ranks, with many soldiers opting to walk away rather than face the battlefield. Early reports indicate nearly no desertions in 2022, but as the war dragged on, a steady rise ensued. By January 2024, around 100 soldiers were reportedly abandoning their posts each month. Then came the dramatic escalation. By early 2025, that number exploded. What does this indicate? The brutal reality of combat is taking its toll, revealing the unvarnished truth: countless soldiers are disillusioned. A grim report illustrates the shift. Desertions skyrocketed to over 500 a month, signaling widespread unrest within the ranks. Those entrusted to defend their homeland are wrestling not just with an external enemy but with a system that is failing them. Today, Russian forces grapple with fractions of their original strength as internal dissent bubbles over. At front lines once teeming with hopeful warriors, silence lingers where courage used to stand. Many of those who answer the call do not return, trapped in a cycle of hopelessness. This stark reality raises sobering questions. Is the Russian military becoming a mere shell of itself, bogged down by its internal crises? Further scrutiny reveals a shocking detail: a notable percentage of those deserting are not seasoned fighters, but contract soldiers feeling the harsh sting of betrayal. They are joined by inmates turned combatants, desperate individuals thrust into chaos with survival on their minds. As reports suggest, the actions of these groups paint a portrait of growing unrest. They live in the shadow of oblivion, contemplating whether to risk it all for freedom or submit to the brutal machinery of war. As the crisis deepens, the challenges grow for those still on the battlefield. Stories emerge of soldiers turning against their commanders and fleeing from the front lines as despair takes hold. A notable incident illustrates this upheaval. A group of detained soldiers sparked a riot, fueled by unbearable conditions and the agony of uncertainty. They broke free into the night, a desperate bid for survival amidst oppressive circumstances. This internal chaos is but a reflection of the horrors faced by soldiers on the ground. What prompts these brave souls to abandon their comrades? The continuous push into battles designed only for attrition leaves little room for honor or glory. They realize they are mere pawns in a game devised by distant leaders, their lives sacrificed in the relentless quest for territorial gains. With growing dissent, one must contemplate the future of a military that relies on numbers alone. The rising tide of desertions hints at a potential unraveling of the very fabric that holds the Russian military together. As the echoes of battle fade, who will be left standing? What new realities will emerge from the ashes of an army on the brink of collapse? The answers lie in the murky depths of war, where courage and despair dance hand in hand.